Thank you so
Hello.
much.
Hello. How are you?
Good, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. That's so nice to see you and finally kind of get to chat, huh? And share this new pamphlet. Like you said, this pamphlet is all over LA County. We really created it with it's Quality Start Los Angeles. So we do work with a variety of programs. We work with private, profit, nonprofit, state-funded programs, and family childcare all over the LA County. And what we wanted to really create as we were moving forward is how can we really support families in learning about literacy and what does that mean for our youngest children. And as we were kind of thinking about these ideas, the pamphlet idea arose, and we were thinking about what is it how children can have these places where they can read or learn about literacy and language, but it's not only about books, that things that families can do at home to support them. It's not only that they learn it at the preschool or at their school. It starts from the very beginning, right? So in our pamphlet, you will see there is tips for 0 to 3 through preschoolers. So we want to, have those things available for families and anybody who really picks up the pamphlet and kind of starts just looking at it. Maybe they know a child in their building, maybe they work in a doctor's office, whatever that case may be, that they'll be able to support them. So I'll be able to share that pamphlet and you guys are going to look at it soon. And I'll have the link. It's free to download. It is in English and Spanish available. And it's
Lower that,
actually,
Frederick.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
No, it's okay. And it's in English and Spanish. I have it here. It kind of opens up. It gives all these little tips. Very family friendly. This is our QSLA logo on there with the kite. That's basically for all our providers as we move forward, really supporting them. So when you see centers out that have a QSLA banner or flyer, something at their center, that lets you know that they go through a lot of quality improvements daily. So there's different agencies coming in to really support them in their quality efforts. We're trying to have everybody have quality, not only because they live in certain areas or certain demographic or social emotional social status. It's basically everybody should have quality education, and we need to start it off very young. So that's why we work with this program, and I've been coaching with Child360 for about 5 years. I just completed my 5th year in September, so it's been a while now, it's been really great. Like I said, we work all over LA County. That goes all the way from Antelope Valley, which is our Lancaster Palmdale area, all the way until Long Beach, and we have parts of Pomona, different areas, but in the largest area, that's kind of where we're at. Yeah, so that's some of the great stuff that we've been doing.
Did you want to share like your Take Time Talk pamphlet and how it might be different than this? If those are, if anyone's seen that pamphlet before, they might be familiar with that.
Sure. So our Take Time Talk and all our pamphlets are now you're able to download them for free online. So if you go to our website, child360.org, you'll be able to see all our pamphlets at the bottom with our resources. We have their teacher trainings. We have, if you're looking for like professional development hours, we have resources for families. We have activities to do. We're also kind of tapping into different areas to see how we can support our community and what teachers need, what families need, what our students need, especially during this time of COVID. So take time to talk is our family. It's kind of a more for the families and having conversations. What does that mean? And then we have a STEAM one because we're very big on science, technology, art, math, and engineering. So that's one of some activities that families can do at home related to STEAM, because those are really big things that we want to support at home as well as in the classroom. And then we have a brain development where it's 0 to 3, and that's just focused on how to support children who are developing and their brain. We're using it as like a foundation. They're building on top of each other, different skills, and how families could really support them with that, singing, reading, talking. those things. And then our last pamphlet, which is the one with leading with reading, the one that we're going to be sharing today. Now, this one, we made it for our providers and our families in LA County. And what we really wanted to do on this one that differs a lot from the other ones is that we wanted to give families opportunities to highlight some of the things that they do, even though it's in the home language, that's still important. If you can tell a story, you don't have to read the whole thing. You can use pictures, you can use your language, you can use puppets, you can use different things that you have at home, stuffed animals, to support your child and really understand what is reading, how what is literacy, what is language, those things that we can do, just simple things, talking to them throughout the day, asking them open-ended questions, and supporting them with that. And we have little tips in there that you'll see, those things, and really kind of growing from there and seeing how families will be able to use that and really enhance their children's experience in reading. It's really important to think about how much language is really connected to literacy, and that connection when we're going to be discussing some stuff today. So I kind of wanted to open it up to you guys, and we can do like a really quick icebreaker. But if anybody wanted to share either in the chat box, I'll be monitoring that, or you can, unmute yourself if that's possible. But what was your favorite childhood story? And we can just kind of, if you want to tell me why, that's fine, or you just want to write it in the chat, that would be great.
Who's your mother?
Who's your mother? Why did you like that
Yes.
one so much?
Because it was simple and
Mhm.
it was cute. I remember it from kindergarten. My teacher used to read all of those books. So that one I read to all my children too as they grew up. I even have a copy of it too.
Oh, what a beautiful memory. That's great. Very nice. Thank you for sharing. Anybody
You're
else?
welcome.
I'll go. My favorite one is Hungry Hungry Caterpillar.
Why did you like that story so much?
My teacher actually brought in caterpillars and we got to watch them eat. So it really affected me in a positive way. I really like that book.
Yeah, so in this story, Hungry Hungry Caterpillar, for you, as you were reading it, you were also seeing like the science behind it, right? The whole life cycle. So
Yes.
that's exciting. Maybe it's something that kind of stayed with you, right?
Yeah, and I learned a lot from it because it was interesting to go from seeing a caterpillar not really eating to getting really, really hungry and then going, into its cocoon, turning into something so incredible. I even think about it now when I'm going through something tough.
Right. Yeah, it has a lot of metaphors. And then so much great language like cocoon, different words that we think about when we're really like using books that really enhances our vocabulary. That's also a part of literacy and language. Thank you so much for sharing. Anybody else?
There's one in the chat box, Judy.
Oh, yeah, I do see Charlotte's Web. Oh, this is very sweet. So my parents were immigrants, and they would never read. So in third grade, we had an amazing substitute that would love to read to us. Oh, that's so very nice. And you were able to experience Charlotte's Web. I do remember reading that as a child too in school. And having and wondering, because some of the things I didn't understand, like where did the spider go? Those kinds of things. But it always stuck to me. And then as you grow, you figure out these different things, that books have so much meaning. So thank you so much for sharing that, Jenny. Down by the Bay, the rhymes were so fun to sing. Yes, that one's a great one. Down by the Bay is such a good book because you can kind of rhyme. You can ask, the children to make a rhyme. It's like a silly song, but really great for phonetic awareness. So I really like that. Anybody else want to share?
I want to share.
Sure.
So it was Clifford the Big Red Dog. For me, that just brings such good memories. I immigrated to the United States when I was in fourth grade. So the same as Jenny was saying that her parents, never read to her and stuff. that was the same thing with me. I don't remember my parents ever reading to me. It probably wasn't enforced, or it was just one of those things like I'm not sure. Latinx culture, I guess,
Right.
it not so enforced, but now I do it with my children. I have 3, and so it's just amazing how, you were mentioning, Judy, that it's so crucial to, to begin this reading at home, and it's just really important to go over it with our children, to not only to create memories, but it's for development. It's so crucial.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially during these times, right? If you can at least have like a couple of minutes at the end of your day to share in stories with your child, even if you're storytelling, acting out something, just taking that time to be present with your child, they will remember it for a long time. And those memories are kind of something that keeps on popping up. I do have in the chat Ramona Quimby. I used to love that book because I felt I could really relate to her as a child. Yeah, I used to love reading Ramona Quimby. And she kept me reading more too. Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss. I used to love the illustrations. Yeah, they have really good pictures, right? A lot of like facial expressions. Grimm stories. Yeah, those are really good. There was a time, I think, as I was growing up, that books were connected with a lot of feelings. So I wanted to read kind of like spooky books. And I remember reading like Goosebumps, and thinking that was really scary, right? And like kind of being connected to that. So books can do so much for us. They take us to other places. They help us, focus on things. They teach us to learn. They just do so much. We can learn so much from them. So thank you everyone for sharing. I appreciate it. Do you want to use the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and
Thank you.
up. Oops.
It's okay. We can. There you go. If not, I can share it too. Oh,
You got it?
yeah, it's fine. That looks good. Okay, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about literacy and language. Um, like I said, my name is Judy. I'll tell you guys a little bit about myself too. I did my undergrad at the University of Laverne, which is nearby Cal Poly. And then I did my master's not that long ago at National University, with a program at Child360. So it was a bunch of me and my coworkers. We did it in a cohort, and it was a great time. And then that's how I started getting asked to join into different committees where we were creating different pamphlets and our own real passion. So, like Michelle said, I was at UCLA for a while. I've been teaching for about 14 years. I was in the classroom. I started pretty young. And then I really focused my last couple of years, I want to say the last 7, 8 years of my career in infant toddler, because I'm a big fan of brain development, what that means, kind of laying the foundations. I like all that stuff. So I really did focus. I was an infant toddler teacher that whole time, working at a community college. And then I also worked at UCLA. And then I also opened up a little center in Westwood too, to support families and really kind of focus on literacy and language. So that was a really good experience for me. And then as I moved on forward, in my career, that's when I went to Child360, and I really wanted to mentor and support teachers. And that's how I became a coach. So that was my kind of career in a nutshell. But so far, that's it. Yeah, we can go on to the next slide. So I wanted to share this picture, and I want to talk about leading with reading. So when we look at this great picture, if you see, it's a flower shop. And it's how we can connect reading with fun, right? So as we're thinking about this flower shop, and we're thinking about children that have maybe dual language learners, families that maybe don't speak the language. I mean, LA County has just so many languages. that they offer, so our children are coming into the classrooms and they have so many different rich experiences in their own language, with their food, with their language, with their experiences. So one of the things that we did here, actually one of the teachers did, so this is my Head Start federally funded program. And this is a dramatic play area that's supporting what they were learning about. And this theme, because they do the creative curriculum, so it's a study. The study was based on seasons, and the children then kind of linked it into flowers, because that was something that they connected with the seasons, like things bloom, and then they die, and it's summer and then fall. So as they were doing this, they talked about flower shops. And if you look at the setup of this, everything is labeled. So it says flower shop, and they have like different things. The types of flowers are labeled as well to support like classification and those and other skills like that. And then they have the different tools that the children can use while they're, playing in the flower shop. Now, this can be something that we're literally connecting a book that was read and a conversation from the children, and now creating something more that's tangible that they're going to make connections to. So these are great ways to introduce reading and these skills in your classroom, because I think somebody has shared before how they read The Hungry Hungry Caterpillar, and then they saw the caterpillars, and then they, that they ate them, they went through the whole life cycle. And that really was something that they made connections to the real world with. And that's why we were able to kind of hold that information in and keep it for a longer period of time. The same thing is happening here in this flower shop. Because the teacher has a book on the very top, it says It's Our Garden, where she relates information where children can look at the pictures and play with the materials. They're able to make those connections between language, literacy, and their own experience. And that's where we really see the deeper learning. So we can make reading, to be fun, to help them associate with having fun. We can also invite families. If your families have you like they speak different languages, or they have different careers that they want to share and tell you about. Maybe you want to learn some words that they say in their home language. Those are really great. I always recommend teachers to introduce emotion words. That's one of the tips that I would always recommend to all teachers. If you have children, and even our own children in any language, but always really having some words for emotion words, because that's kind of the part where it gets hard for the children, right? So if we're able to let them or understand, or we can relate to them using some emotion words, that'll really support them and help them on their journey in learning, especially in the classroom, which makes the biggest impact. So those are some of the things where you can kind of see this whole setup that can also lead into some storytelling and sharing and learning about science, because we're also doing, a flower shop. But having these experience where they make these connections is really crucial. Does anybody have any questions about this slide or anything that I said?
Question. You mentioned about having an emotional word. Can you give me an example of what you mean by that?
So, for example, I would say, so I used to work at UCLA, like I mentioned, and I had children from various backgrounds because of the community UCLA. They, families are coming all around, engineers and doctors, different things like that. So they would come and do their, practice there for maybe 2 years. And I had a child who spoke Portuguese, and I didn't know any of the language. I also had like, a lot of children that were from, I want to say maybe Armenian. I do remember Armenian a lot, and then Persian. That was the biggest one. And I didn't speak any of those words, but I was able, the parents were able to tell me a couple of words in their home language, and I was able to use those words to support them. So, for example, when I would see him crying, I would say it in the home language, crying. Or, are you sad? I would say, are you? And then I would say the word for sadness, just so that the child can understand that I also understand why he's crying at, or are you feeling emotional, or is it this or that, you know, whatever the feeling is. By the time they left my program, which would be maybe in 8 months, depending on the contract that the families were on, they would be speaking English and they would be speaking their home language. They would, you know, kind of mix it up. For the majority of the part, I had children that were 18 months to 36 months, so fairly young, and they were able to learn a lot of language and connect it to their feelings. So that's really important when we're using these emotion words. Does that make sense, Jenny? Anybody else have comments or questions? Okay, we can move on. I wanted to share this video with everyone. So this is reading tips for teachers and families. You're gonna find this on our YouTube channel, also on our Child360 website. We took kind of the same concepts from Take Time to Talk, but we wanted to do a new series called Homegrown. And in our homegrown series, we're really having these experiences that families can do at home because of COVID. Some of them are going to be on self-care. What can you do mentally? Some of them are having like STEAM activities at home. Some of them about literacy, some of them about math. It kind of just depends. There's a bunch of different ones. There's even like one for parents, for meditation, how to support that, because we really want to have these resources for families. So these are all free. We also have them on the Child360 website, and they're all linked on YouTube if you look under Child360. So this one just is a really great way to kind of give tips for teachers and families. I'm hoping it works. If not, I can cue it, Michelle.
Okay, is this a video?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yay.
okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Asia Simon, and I'm a program supervisor at Child360. Today, I'll be your host for Talk Tuesday. We're going to chat about some quick and easy tips for reading to your preschooler. This is Carter, and Carter is 3 years old. If your little one is anything like mine, rambunctious, energetic, and more so into gross motor activities, encouraging a little quiet time for reading can be quite the task. Here's what I like to do to make our reading experiences a little more inviting. First, you always want to let your child choose the book they like to read. The more interested they are in the book, the more likely they are to engage. So Carter has already chosen a book. What book did you choose, Carter? What is this book called? Little Bear. This book is called Say Please Little Bear. So we're just gonna read the first few pages. Let's see, let's turn it. All right, here we go. Daddy Bear and Little Bear were on the way. Oh, you wanna turn the pages? Okay. Next, you just want to always make sure that reading is fun. It really helps to engage early readers. You can do this by changing your voice, gestures, different facial expressions. That really helps to portray the different characters in the book and makes reading a lot more inviting for the children. Let's see what's happening with Little Bear. Ready? They reached Little Bunny's party on time. Mouse whispered in Daddy Bear's ear. Mouse says, "Excuse me, please. Excuse me, please." Little Bear ran to play on the train. Mouse whispered in Daddy Bear's ears. Mouse says, what did Mouse say? What's wrong with Mouse?
He's want to get on the back train.
Mouse wants to get on the back train. And what does it look like Mouse is doing?
Why?
Mouse looks like he's crying, right? So if your child has the language, ask them to tell you the story using the pictures as a reference. This helps develop a lot of language skills, and that's an important pre-reading skill. That's funny. Yeah, you see that? You can also ask your child a lot of different open-ended questions, like what do you think will happen next? How do you think that made him or her feel? Questions that start with how. This really helps them to do things like predict, describe, identify emotions. Those are all important things for social emotional skills as well. Let's see. All right, you're turning the page. If you find that the book is a little bit too long for your child's attention span, feel free to read it in small increments and notice when they lose interest. It's okay to stop and come back a little bit later. And Carter is interested in singing. There are tons of things you can do to engage early readers. What's most important is you and your child's enjoyment at that moment. Make sure that you just make it your own, and that's how you Talk Tuesday.
That's funny.
Yeah, so there's other ones on there too. So I welcome everyone to look at our YouTube page and then let us know if you have any ideas. We can always add different activities, or if you want to be a part of it, we would love that too. Usually it's just been us as the people that work there and the children that my coworkers have, but it's a great time to kind of share and use these activities, share them with your friends and family. They're really great tips and fun things to do. Does anybody have any questions on the video that we just watched? Okay, we can move on to the next slide.
Judy, I just wanted to say for my language and literacy students that when you are presenting live is always when you can expect the child to do just what happened there. And I love how she modeled the right behavior. She kept going and she didn't give that behavior any attention. She just kept the speaking going. So I think as educators, we working with young children and families, we definitely need practice at that, right? That was hard, that was frustrating, but she did really well.
Yeah, so it's very true that I used to have plans for what I would do. This is what we're gonna work on, and it's gonna be this book, and I'm gonna read till page 5, and sometimes that would just change. It was just a plan of possibilities, but not things that would happen depending on your students. So it's okay not to have them there sitting down or be so rigid, because that's not how children learn. We want them to create those experiences where they make connections to what they're reading. So another way to do it too is like if we looked at the slide in the beginning, right? If she was reading a book about flowers and maybe her child didn't make that connection, but she's bringing in those materials. Maybe they go on nature walks around their neighborhood where they look at different flowers, or she walks around and she points out, look at this red flower. What do you think that is? Look at this. What do you think this is? Have you seen a rose? Have you seen this? Just very simple things that they can do right on a neighborhood walk. And then maybe read the book later on that they could have like a connection. So it's really important to kind of show those things, because they're not going to sit for very long. They're very young. And it's hard for us to sit too, right? For, being on the computer for a long time. So actually, just listening to what their needs are. I always tell teachers, your students better. You know what they need. You know what they want to do. You know the books that they like. I know when I was a preschool teacher, one of the books that my students really liked was the No David book. That one was super popular. They loved it, and it has no words. It was just, he would be eating and his mouth was open, and I would say, what is that? What do you think is going on? And the kids would laugh. They would make so many connections to that, because they have always been told, don't eat with your mouth open, or, you can choke, and they would start telling me, you can choke, you can hurt yourself, those things. And just making those connections to reading is really the foundation. Anybody else have any comments or questions about the video? Okay, so we can move on. Conversation is key. While reading, you can point out objects, like I said, or repeat words. So for our very young children, I want to say a lot of our infants and toddlers, they have the babbling, right? And this isn't any language. You can introduce, your home language, but they will do the babbling sounds. That's the very beginning of language. So it'll be like ba 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 or right? Or they try to make those things that we call raspberries, where they make bubbles with their saliva. All those things is really supporting them to start with language. So you can always repeat and mimic those sounds. Another great way to do this is like if you're reading a story about Old MacDonald had a farm and you want to highlight all the animal sounds, right? So a dog goes roof and a cat goes meow and a cow goes moo. You know, slowly introducing the animals to the children really makes that connection between the book and the sound, and it just becomes a like a fun singing, rhyming time with your child. Now, this is also a great tip for teachers. If you have children that don't speak the language, but a cow says moo in all languages. So you can introduce those things and they will know. And like I told you before about one of my students, he had moved here from Brazil, and Cal was Cao, and he would say to me, you know, he would tell me the story, and then I would say, "What is this?" And he would tell me in his language, and then he would tell me moo moo, because in the beginning, you know, as we were developing, he would say, you know, it's moo, and that's how I would be able. Oh yes, of course, a cow says moo, a dog barks, you know, all those things happen, and they're able to identify and have that connection at home. So those are really great things to use in the classroom, and they will help you as we move forward, especially now during distance learning, that we don't get to, you know, be around the children as much, or if you are in the classroom, you don't have as many children, so they're not really learning how we used to do it in a group time. Now it should be more individualized. So those are great things to use. Also singing songs in a home language. So if there's a song that families like, you can always ask them to record it, and then you can put it on, you know, in your classroom. Or if there's a CD that they like to listen to that's, you know, appropriate with children's music, then you can also bring that in. Another thing that's really fun is that if you build their vocabulary by naming different pictures. So we like to always use, and I know at Michelle, your center, we always had the family portrait, right? We have all our families, they bring in their portraits. I had the same thing. And they would carry their family pictures around throughout the day because the students were young and they wanted to feel that connection. Throughout the day, we would label, oh, who's that? Oh, that's so-and-so's mom. This is my uncle. This is my dog, you know, and having connections to that and building vocabulary. Oh, this is your dad. Oh, tell me about your dad. My dad works. They would always tell me, oh, his favorite color is blue. It's his birthday today. You know, those kinds of things. I have a dog. I want a cat. Making connections to language through their own experiences and their family is really key. I always invite people to use puppets when you're looking at areas in your classroom or areas at home where you want to create these, what I call a book nook. Really having puppets, and this can be something as simple as a sock. It doesn't have to be an elaborate thing or something that you find on Lakeshore. No, it can be something as simple as a sock where you can mimic different gestures and facial expressions to create the story. And then the last one I talked about, the facial expressions when you read, giving those characters some sort of, you know, connection. For example, if you're doing, I want to say Three Little Pigs, that was one of the stories that the children really liked, and they liked the wolf. And they like the like cold breathing, you know, like he would blow out the house, and they would like to take a deep breath and really blow out the house. And I would say, here comes Mr. Wolf, or, you know, the pigs had different voices, and asking them questions to support, you know, the learning. Like, do you think that the wolf and the pigs can be friends? Right? And having them now create a whole other story with puppets and story tell that story that they have maybe heard a couple of times in their own words, and really introducing some of the language, because that will really support them as they continue to make those connections. They can use their home language to do that. They can use their language. They can use pictures. They can act it out. They can dance it out. They have so many creative ways of really learning and kind of expressing themselves to really support reading and language. Does anybody have any other tips that they want to share about conversation or literacy? Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up the point that to give children enough time, sometimes we're too quick to jump in and tell them, but I just think it's so important that we give enough time and space for children to respond, especially when they have language differences or if we know they're slow to warm or they're more quiet, to just give them that time and just, make space for them.
I agree. I really like that. Yes, especially when we have so many children that really have they come from so many backgrounds and we don't know exactly what their family life is. Are they the first or is there more people living with them? So really giving them that opportunity. I always say observation is key. So if we observe more, we can see how they're using the materials and support them in that. Now, I do have to say, a disclaimer. Now, when we bring out new materials, depending on the children and their age group, that book might be very, very popular. The book that you bring out that seems to be very popular. In my case, it was No David, right? So that book was very popular. If you have another copy of that book, it's okay to bring those out so the children can touch it. Now, let's say it's a teacher's book, and I know some teachers don't like to have their own private collection, and that's theirs. What can you use from that book to support if the children can't touch it? And I would always recommend all the teachers at least giving the children 2 or 3 rules tops on how you want them to use the materials. I wouldn't start with the no, I would tell them what you want them to do. So if you did decide that you want your No David book out, you should model how you want that. So only how many friends? Only 2 friends or 1 friend with the No David book, right? And we're going to be very gentle with the pages and you can show them, you turn it from the corner and however you would like it to be. And then just giving them one, waiting. So somebody might have to be next. So one of the things that's very popular in classrooms is starting a list, right? If you think that the children are taking too much time with the book, because there is children that will hoard the things, right? So you can start a list. You can even put a timer. Okay, how long do you think you're going to need the book for? They're going to say like 10 minutes. They probably won't need it for 10 because their attention span, right? But we can say, okay, how about we do 5? Are you okay with 5 or are you okay with 3? Whatever the key is. And then, write that down and say 3 minutes and that's it. And then they have to give it to the next friend. Having those established rules, because sometimes when we bring in a lot of materials and we don't explain to the children what they're used for, then they will act up. So that it's really important to kind of show them what the material is used for, show them how to use it, how you would like for them to use it, and explaining those things. If you have pictures, put that with it. So what I always would tell teachers, some teachers would tell me, Judy, I have a great book area, but the kids go in there and they just toss the books. This is my strategy. Take pictures of the children that like to toss things and look at observation, right? Is it because they don't have anything else to toss in the classroom that's safe? Or do they have non-materials outside to toss? Maybe it can be something like that. Second thing I always say is the children that you want for them to change their behavior, take pictures of them reading the materials, how you would like for them to use it. Post those pictures that show the children in your classroom. Let's say maybe you don't have pictures, you can always use Google Child with Book and add it on there and post it in the reading area and say, my friends, if there's something that happens or, students, in this area, we have to use the book like this child who's reading the book and sitting down. This is how we use the book. So all our visual learners, because remember, thinking about children that are learning, that have a home language, they're learning our language and then trying to make those connections. Us ourselves are also visual learners. So having those visual pictures really, really support language and literacy. Having things labeled so the children can see where they go also is big support. Anybody else? Okay, we can go to our next slide. Thank you. So we talked a little bit about creating a book nook. Does this look familiar, Michelle? Yeah. So I have to say, I was a coach. I still am the coach there. at Michelle's old center, but this I got from her, one of the classrooms. And I just want to look at this space and just kind of think about, what does this space tell you? Anybody want to share?
I think it's
so
very
cozy.
inviting.
Yeah, I see somebody put it so cozy. Oh, I like that hand gestures. I'm sorry, I didn't see that until now. Yeah, it's very inviting, right? It tells you also how many friends can be in the area. So if you look at it, it's about 4 friends, because the pillows that are individualized are only allowed for 4 children in that area. So the teachers were intentional when setting up the area to support that it only was available for 4 friends. And they have the books that are available to the students in that cubby. They also have baskets there with other books that children can read as they kind of move around and have this area of support. The what the teachers did in here, and I know maybe some of us work at private or public state preschools, but they dropped down the ceiling. I know a lot of places you're not allowed to do that, but here we were able to do that, and they dropped it down to give it that cozy feeling where it's also a place where you can kind of come in, reflect, and focus, right? It's not in the middle of the classroom. That's the busiest area. It's not by the art table. This is an area of the classroom that's very warm and inviting, where children want to go and visit, and they have this space where they can have conversations. They can maybe, read some good books. They can have, share in information, but it's more about being focused, right? Only 4 friends are in there. And then another thing that the teachers did too is that they had, I didn't take a picture of it, but they have a list of the children that are going to be there next. So sometimes the children wanted to act out different roles of stories, and they had puppets, but that puppet was very popular. So they had to wait, and they always had lists, and the children would sign in and out their names. So that's really fun. Another great way to kind of provide this is having like all these warm baskets. So if you were doing this at home, it doesn't have to be, so big. It could just be a pillow. It can be some books. It can be, maybe some music that's like instrumental or classic playing in the background. Maybe you want to have, some stuffed animals to support coziness, those kinds of things. Yeah, so that's some of the stuff that was there. And then really kind of thinking about providing a space that has a rug or a lamp, a book, shelves if you can. If not, it's, we understand it's very hard. And then also having objects with numbers and like board books for different children, because there's a lot of children that maybe don't have a lot of books at home, but they're used to maybe reading board books, and those are really great for early readers because they don't have a lot of words. So if you see some children that are really interested in reading, or they start kind of sounding out words and you want to share that, that's a great time to have different kinds of books there. And then maybe really focusing on what the child is interested in. Those are really popular books. And then asking a lot of those questions in this area is key. So even though we allow the children to go play there and have great experiences there, it's not only about what the children are doing, but it's about pushing them to the next level, asking them these questions like, how do you think animals would feel if we did this? Do you think that the wolf and the pig can be friends? Why or why not? Right? Allowing them to predict when you're telling a story, what do you think is going to happen next before you open the next page, right? So asking them these questions are really going to use our higher order thinking and really get them to problem solve. And that's such a great time to have these experiences with the students, allowing them to kind of figure out, what do they think is going to happen in the next part of the story? How can they elaborate? How can they create those things? So those are really great ways to do that. Does anybody else have any questions about the Book Nook area?
There was a couple of really good points. Rose said talked about the neutral colors that are not overly stimulating. They have a calming effect. And Veronica said that it seems like a good place to reinforce good behavior.
Yeah, it's also yeah, I agree with you. It's a great place. And just remembering too, so I want to say this. So I have walked into classrooms before and we've talked about this, that this area is a quiet space, right? So we want it to be not because you're good or you're bad or whatever that is. We always want there to be like pictures of what we want the behavior to be. If we allow children or we support them with giving them visual cues of what the behavior you would like for them to be in the classroom, you can post classroom rules, not too many, go over them every day, because people forget. And I forget a lot of the rules a lot of times, so it's always good to remind the children what the expectation is, in that area. That way it's not based on good or bad behavior, that the children have an expectation. They know what is expected of them. They know what they have to do. And then creating this space that's quiet so they can work on these rules. So there will still be children that will go in that area and toss a book around. But guess what? Now, because there's other kids in there, we'll say you can't do that. Because look, remember we talked about this, and this is the rule. And they kind of help each other, where they're doing the learning more peer to peer, that has, a lot more connection than when it's just teacher directed. So we want to allow them to, make some mistakes, do some learning on their own. And peer to peer, we want to cause a little bit of conflict for the children to use these problem solving skills that we're working on. And that's a really great place to do it and introduce new words, especially in the book area, really build that language and literacy. Any other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to add,
Sure.
when I was there,
Mhm.
it was also just a safe place because they knew it was a quiet space. So if they were feeling overwhelmed or upset about anything, they knew it was a place they could just go and relax and be left alone and just lay down and process what had just happened. And it was a good place for a teacher child to interact at that point in those quiet spaces, during emotional breakdowns or any problems they were going through in the class. So it wasn't just literacy. The whole area says come and relax, come and unwind, kind of thing.
I agree. When you're creating these spaces, it's really important for you as a adult to think about what relaxes you. What color scheme does that look like? So I'll tell you for myself, I like the ocean. I really love being around water. So my background, maybe in my classroom, it was more blues, right? Those kinds of tones, because to me that felt relaxing. There is no right or wrong. It's just one of the color. When I was thinking about how can I create this, what colors do I see? For me, it was being around the water. So I always went with like a blue, green tones, because that's something that was really relaxing to me. So looking at your own things, what relaxes you? Some people like to listen to music. Do you see any colors when you listen to music? There's people that are very creative. So they see kind of, I express myself this way. I like to do these things, so thinking about that when you're really creating a space, because you're designing it to have these experiences. When as an infant toddler teacher, we had a goodbye window. So I invite teachers to not only create one book area, I always say have a couple. Have a couple. The more that you have, the better. Children, will come and visit. I know that it's very difficult because we have a lot of things that we have to have in our classrooms, and it has different areas and children need to go there. But it doesn't mean that you have to have a full on, extra area. It can be a chair, it can be a bench with a couple of baskets that just have books in them. One basket with books can be somewhere else in your classroom, easy for you to come in, or the child to come and sit, maybe 2 friends, maybe 3 friends, that they could just come and sit, look at books. So the more that we have these areas available to the students, the better it is for them. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add the outdoor environment too, that books aren't just taboo for the indoors.
Yes.
That can be taken outdoors also.
Yeah, having a book area outdoors is so nice because it does bring in these different calming elements that nature just offers us generally. A breeze, fresh air, sunshine, all these things does bring a lot of like those calming effects, and book areas outdoors are very popular. And remembering, having those established rules, right? Because we don't want them to be maybe by the bike area where that's going to be too noisy, but we do want them to be in an area that maybe the children get water and they sit and they read. In my infant toddler class, we had like a goodbye window, and the children were going, obviously they were very young, so there is a time in development where it's very normal to have separation anxiety, and especially when you're fairly young, it can be very devastating. So in this area, in our goodbye window, or see you later, we would say it was called see you later window, they would come and they would, say goodbye to their families. We had pictures of their families there just in case they needed like one extra hug. They could always hug the frame, remind them. Sometimes that would cause a lot of anxiety for the children because they was like, no, no. But, we also had things that would support them. So maybe some books that were soft, maybe some board books, right? Textured things. We had puppets there. We also have stuffed animals, so something that you want to hold on to and keep, and then when you're ready to join the group, that's a time that you can come. Really, a lot of those words that support emotions were highlighted there in various languages because we really wanted to support the students, and it was a hard time, but having a space to kind of take a deep breath and reflect before we can join on to the next activity. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, I think we can go to the next slide. Here's some of the resources. So I will be, what should I do, Michelle? Do you want me to link it to you or?
No, what I could do is just share your PowerPoint and, send it in an announcement so that they could all have it if they needed it and watch the video and does this have the pamphlet?
Yeah, the pamphlet is the first bullet point.
Okay. All right. So they
yeah. So if you click on it now, it'll go straight to the download.
Okay. I don't think, can you see it? Oh, you can't see it, huh?
No.
Okay. All right. How do I get it? All right, because I could see it when I get it, but you don't have it.
Yeah, let me see. If you give me access, I have it available.
That's okay. What I'll do is I really like the picture on the front. It looks like my husband.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, I couldn't. Let's see. Can you see it now?
Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's it. So it's leading with reading, and then it has just tips that families can use at home, especially now during distance learning. We really wanted to, create a routine with families to support their development, having, anytime. We broke it up in the age groups. So it's from ages 0 to 3, and then for preschool and beyond, because these are really great skills to have, supporting conversations, questions to ask, using labeling objects at home, all these great things that we talked about. Having it fun, using gestures, hand gestures. You can use your hands as puppets, retelling stories, acting them out. Some of the great tips about the book nook and things to use. Also having like instrumental music in the area is always peaceful. And then going beyond and kind of sharing other books that you can use and things that you can talk to with your child at home or at school. They kind of work in both ways. And then at the end, I think we have some QSLA information about why we started, and it gives you a little bit more of what QSLA is. QSLA is mostly for LA County, but every county has QSLA in California. So QSLA is just for the LA County. That's why it's QSLA. But then there's also a QS Mariposa County, QS, I know in the Bay they have another one, just all over. So they're all over. But the one that particularly I work for is QSLA Los Angeles.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing knowledge and wisdom. And the pamphlet is, I already love it. I already see how it's so different from the other ones that you've done too.
Yeah, it's a little bit different this time, but it, I think they're getting better and better as we go. And the creativity and, it's the funding sometimes because they want to cover certain topics. But this one it was really fun. It was, I want to say it was a team of us. So about 7 people on it. And we really like worked to create something that we were able to share and support families, especially now with, distance learning and being at home. How could they create these areas and help support their children?